Have you heard the expression, first they ignore you, then they mock you, then they fight you, then you win? Well, I think perhaps we might be getting closer to a win. I know things seem really, really desperate right now, but that's because the fight is at nearly, hopefully, a crescendo. And I don't think that the win is just around the corner. But what I do think is that the people speaking out against all of the globalist agendas, the people speaking out against the COVID response and the vaccines and the rest of it, I think finally that message is breaking through, and the people who would profit from our injury and illness are losing control. They're losing control in spite of the best efforts they've put forward to keep it. And this is a good thing. In this video, I'm going to add to the list of the people I covered in my last video. People who have gone out of their way to do quality research and to put the facts together to present to the public to show them the truth of what's going on. All of those people have been met with their licenses being suspended. They've been put in jail for short or long terms. They've been censored. They've been ridiculed. They've been dragged into court. And today I'm going to introduce you to some more serious things that are going on in that same vein. But first, who are they? First they ignore you, then they mock you, then they fight you, then you win. Who are they? Well, I want to show you something that happened in Ontario, Canada, where I live, just the other day. And it's gone pretty viral, but perhaps people outside of Canada are unaware of it. Our Chief Officer of Health is named Dr. David Williams. And the other day, he went on television and said, "Oh no, the vaccines won't be mandatory, but you just might not be able to access hospitals or schools or travel freely." I suppose Dr. David Williams thinks that he can get away with this because perhaps a whole swath of the public believes that anything short of holding you down and jamming the needle into your arm is a choice, is voluntary, is non-mandatory. But if you threaten to take things away from people that they were always entitled to, unless they take a vaccine, then I'm sorry, that is still coercion. It is still mandatory in the well-understood sense of the word. Now, Dr. David Williams, as I said, is the Chief Medical Officer of Health in Ontario, and his second in command is Dr. Yaffe. Now, both of them were getting ready to give a briefing on coronavirus the other day, and their mic was hot. Listen to what they said.
I don't know why I bring all these papers. I never look at them.
Oh, when you're giving numbers, I do. I go, oh. I said that. Did you really do that?
I just say whatever they write down for me.
That's why you're guessing.
I'm going to say what they tell me to say. So once again, we're at this question, who are they? We'll get to that at the conclusion of this video. I'll give you my hypothesis. For now, what I'm going to do is go through the cases that have come to my attention of continued political persecution. Now, you might balk at that. It's not political persecution, you might say, because these are not politicians. They're not opposition members to the current government. Well, it depends on how you look at that. They are in opposition to the actions of the current government. And the WHO came out and said that health is a political issue now. So all of these people speaking out against the COVID narrative, whatever part of it they are choosing to speak about, they technically are political dissidents. And the countries that are persecuting them and charging them and throwing them in mental institutions, they are engaged in political persecution. These are like banana republics at this point. If Putin did this, we would know what to call it. The press would be all over it. In fact, they are. This is happening in Bolivia right now, and the press is writing about it in the way that they should. Not when it comes to these people. I wonder why. Why in our own Western countries will the press not call political persecution what it is? The first guy I want to talk about comes from France. A while back, French documentarians made this film called Hold Up. The headline here is Hold Up, French documentary lends voice to COVID-19 conspiracy theories. All right, now this is a professionally produced documentary that interviews many experts in the field of genomes, viruses, etc. One of the people they interviewed was a Professor Fortillon. He has proof, he says, that the French Institute Louis Pasteur was working with labs in China since 2003 to develop this virus. And he says that the research he's seen into the virus shows conclusively, this is him, that the virus is man-made, and it includes inserts from the genetic material of malaria and also, I think, HIV/AIDS. LifeSite News has put together an article about this, and I will leave a link to this in the description box so you can read the whole thing. Jean-Bernard Fortillon was taken from his home by a team of French law enforcement officers and forcibly placed in solitary confinement at the psychiatric hospital of Uzay on December 10th. And nobody has heard from him or been able to go see him since. In the LifeSite News article, they go over this, what Fortillon was saying about the Institut Pasteur. He accuses them of having fabricated the SARS-CoV-2 virus over several decades and having been a party to its escape from the Wuhan lab. I mean, that is a serious accusation. The article goes on to say that in 2017, France's then Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve joined the official opening ceremony of the Wuhan Institute of Virology's P4 lab, together with Yves Lévy, co-president of the steering committee. Lévy is the husband of Agnès Buzyn, who was France's health minister when the COVID-19 crisis erupted. She was also responsible for signing the decree that banned over-the-counter sales of hydroxychloroquine in France in January 2020. You see, the global swamp. This is a globalist initiative, this whole virus. And I'm going to get into why I think that is and why it's handy for them later in this broadcast. But there's more about what's happened with Professor Fortillon. A YouTube channel called Agora TV News out of France. They sent a crew along with Dr. Tal Schaller to this mental institution where Professor Fortillon is being held, and they tried to get in. He tried to request an appointment or a visit with the professor, and they shut him out. They said no, he cannot go see him. And this was days and days after Professor Fortillon had been institutionalized. So that's frightening. They won't even allow visitors who know him in to help him out or hear his side of the story. Further in this same video on from Agora TV News, they interview this man who claims to be a friend of the family, the Fortillons. And he says that the wife of Professor Fortillon has now gone missing. No one has heard from her in days, nor seen her at her apartment. She won't answer her phone or answer emails. Now, I want to tell everybody I know some French, but I'm not fluent in French. I listened to these videos, and that's what I could piece together from the report and from other written things that I saw around, such as this tweet here about Fortillon's wife. But if they have disappeared Professor Fortillon, what has happened to his wife? Did she run to protect herself? Have the authorities taken her as well? We don't know yet. Vivian Kubrick has reported this situation to an organization called CCHR Europe, and they are Citizens Commission on Human Rights, non-political, non-religious mental health watchdog. She tells me that they are fierce. and that governments fear them because they are relentless. So hopefully Professor Fortillon will benefit from some intervention by this Citizens Commission on Human Rights in Europe. I really hope so. I thank Vivian Kubrick for doing that, taking that initiative. It's fantastic. And yes, that is Stanley Kubrick's daughter. Not that it has any relevance to this, but I'm sure people will be wondering. So yes, that's who that is. So we'll move on from Professor Fortillon's kidnap and imprisonment in the psychiatric facility in France to Ireland and Gemma O'Doherty. Now, Gemma O'Doherty was an investigative journalist in Ireland for many years. She won awards. She covered corruption and unsolved murders. A lot of things to do with children like Mary Boyle, Madeleine McCann, the Irish rugby child abuse scandal, and Garda corruption. In Ireland, their police force is called Garda. So if I say Guard or Garda, that's what I'm talking about. But my habits die hard and I say police most of the time. So when I'm talking about this, that's what I mean. Now, it's a long story. Gemma's switch from journalism to activism and founding her own political party called Anti-Corruption Ireland. She is a warrior for Ireland. I know her personally, and she is a woman of extremely high integrity and courage and dedication. Her tenacity is remarkable. Her strength is superhuman. I have a lot of respect, as you can tell, for Gemma. And her and Irish former journalist and writer John Waters, another brilliant patriot from Ireland, they got together a while back and put together a constitutional challenge against Ireland's lockdown and COVID measures. And that is still ongoing. They have to ask the court for permission to bring this case. And so far, they have not gotten it, as far as I know. So Gemma and John are a fierce team. Gemma does her own activism. This is back in August. She was hanging banners off of a bridge that said, "No mandatory vaccines," the banner said. And along came the Garda. They stole their signs and they ended up arresting Gemma. The one guy, well, actually, let me show you just a couple minutes of the video from that moment.
How dare you? Well, we're going to stand down. Look at this gangster.
Excuse me, there's no
a gangster. What's your number?
Anybody.
What's your number? This is criminal damage. My God. My God. You're living in a police state. You're living in a police state. Look at this. How dare you? No way. He's going to steal them. No way. Seize them. Don't you dare take them. Don't you dare. Pather, take them. Take them. Aren't you just delighted? Aren't you delighted? You won't be getting my name and address.
You won't?
No, you won't.
Demanding your name and address.
Get away
Excuse
from
me.
Don't lay a finger.
Excuse me.
Dee!
Excuse me.
Dee,
I'm demanding your name and address under the Public Order Act. Give me your name and address now.
Dee,
They were perfectly within their rights to hang those banners. So the charges that were laid against her at that time by that guard at the end, his name is Waldron, and his nickname is Kicker Waldron because he's known as such a thug in that particular area of Ireland. The charges were abusive and threatening language to the police. You heard that, yes, she insulted him, called him a gangster, but police are expected to be able to take that sort of thing. I would not call her language threatening at all, myself. And the second charge at the time was refusal to provide ID, which again, the Irish are under no obligation to do unless they are suspected of having committed a crime. And hanging of the banners was not a crime. So now I want you to picture Gemma. She's slight. She's a very slight woman. And this great big guard with a knife in his hand from cutting down the banners moments before comes after her. He hurts her. He wrenches her arms behind her back. He puts her in an unmarked car and drives away with her. But it doesn't stop there. On this Monday, she was dragged back to court so that more charges could be laid. This is months later. What they're doing is they're making the process of justice extremely painful for her because, as her solicitor says, these charges will not stick. They're ridiculous. So they've added a third charge now, which is obstructing the police. If she is found guilty of that, she could face jail time. So this is serious matter. This is serious political persecution, in my opinion, against my friend and Irish patriot Gemma O'Doherty. I want to play you a few minutes, I think it's 4 minutes, of Gemma speaking to the crowd after her Monday court appearance.
Gemma and John! Gemma and John!
As I stand here today outside Bray District Court, I am just one in a long line of citizens who have been framed by the Gardaí in Bray. The station here is one of the most corrupt in the country. Now, as I said to the judge, I reject all of these spurious and false charges against me. What is happening in these courts is a flagrant attack on free speech, journalism, and our Constitution, Bunrach na HÉireann.
Yes!
It's taken them 4 months to concoct these new charges against me. But I'll bring you back to August when I was kidnapped by the Gardaí, because that's what it was. And on that summer's day, we were warning the Irish people that mandated forced vaccines were on the way.
From the very start.
And we have been vindicated. Throughout my career, I have been writing about children who have been injured by vaccines, which are unsafe and untested. And here we find ourselves today with a vaccine that is being rolled out for a flu that has not even been proven to exist.
Yes, it's a hoax. 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 Hoax.
Already we have seen people have died as a result of these experimental vaccines, which are a breach of the Nuremberg Code. And every single person involved in the rollout of these vaccines will one day be brought to justice in our country. But bringing you back to that summer's day in August, when we were doing what many, many campaigners, journalists have done through the decades in this country, we were engaged in perfectly lawful activity. This had been checked by me many times with An Garda Síochána, when we used the bridges to try to let the Irish people know about the dangers that they face and that they are losing their rights and their freedom and their bodily integrity. It was the banner, "No forced vaccines," that created this reaction.
Yes.
Because the establishment knew that most Irish people who are sentient will be against this. And that banner had to be removed. I was assaulted by a Garda who has a notorious reputation in this town. He's known as the Kicker Waldron, isn't that right?
Yes!
Where is he today?
Hide in the
Could he
basement.
not come
Even show up. Howard.
and face
We're coming to
his
your
accused?
Scumbag.
Could he not come and face the journalist
Scumbag.
who he is accusing? No, he can't.
He's hiding in his basement.
I'm told he's isolating. Someday, Kicker Waldron and every corrupt
will be isolating in prison cells.
Right to their faces. Now, hopefully, some of that tough talk, some of that real talk will get into those guards' heads and they'll realize that they have a choice too. They can stop upholding the corrupt system and join the fellow Irish patriots that are all around them every day and would love to welcome them into their ranks, hopefully. Gemma wanted me to tell you this. She put in a complaint with the Ombudsman so that they can look into the conduct of the Garda in this case. But it's ex-Garda who are doing the investigation. And they've been poking around, contacting Gemma and her friends and her solicitor to try to find out if there's more video evidence of what happened on that day. And she wants everyone to know that yes, there is more video evidence, and she has it, and it has not yet been posted, and she plans to use this in court to defend herself should they continue to pursue her in this way. And she believes it will exonerate her, and it will cast another shadow over Kicker Waldron's abusive practices towards Irish citizens. So that's good news. You can support Gemma by going to her website, Gemma O'Doherty. Just Google it, it should come up. She has a whole section of videos and live streams that she's recorded from various protests and all kinds of things. Great information. If you just go to the videos list, it's going to pop up with a sidebar here on the videos that says playlist. Click that and you'll see a list of all of the videos that she has there available to watch. All right, moving to the next story of political persecution. In Oregon, Dr. Paul Thomas, who happens to be associated with Dr. James Lyons Weiler, who I featured on my last video, he has had his license revoked without even a hearing or review, which is not normal for their board to do. And this is all because he is a doctor who will vaccinate patients, but he has put together a schedule for vaccines that he says is much safer for children. The board apparently doesn't like this, and now they are trying to, they have revoked his license to practice. He also sees patients who don't want to vaccinate their children, and this is all perfectly legal. It's perfect. It's informed consent. Dr. Thomas is providing a place for people who want to exercise informed consent. And now he is being politically persecuted for that. Unbelievable. In the next story, this is very sad. As yet, nobody knows what really happened in this case, but it's the story of Brandy Vaughan. Vaughan was a former Merck pharmaceutical representative, an outspoken critic of pharmaceutical companies, and created the nonprofit organization Learn the Risk, formerly named the Council of Vaccine Safety. It aims to educate people on the dangers of pharmaceutical products, including vaccines and unnecessary medical treatments. On December 7th, she was found dead, I believe in her apartment. Nobody knows exactly what happened yet. But the coroner's office is going to look into it now after so many of her fans and supporters have called to make inquiries. Because Brandy, like many activists, is on the record saying that she is not suicidal. She would never kill herself. She doesn't do drugs. She's not reckless. And she would never, ever leave her son without a mother. And now she's dead at the age of 45. So unlike the people locked in institutions, unlike the people being dragged through the court, unlike the people who have lost their medical licenses, Brandy Vaughan has lost her life. And I pray that it was not foul play. But if it was, these people are just demonic and evil, and they need to be brought to justice anyway, but they've gone. How far will they go to keep their lying narrative at the forefront of the messaging? Why do they so badly want every single person in the world to get this vaccine? it can't be profit. It can't be solely profit. They already are the wealthiest companies on earth. So what is it? What's really going on here? And who are they? Well, let's start with this guy. Not that he's anywhere near the top of the pyramid, but Seth Berkley, who is CEO of Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, on May 21st, 2019, he said, vaccine doubts spread like a disease and must be taken offline. Now, Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, is partnered with the WHO, the World Health Organization, the World Bank, and many pharma companies. And they don't even go out into the field to distribute vaccines. That's one misconception, I believe, that people think these nonprofit organizations do a lot of the heavy lifting. Not in this case. Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, all they do is they gather money and then they hand it out. So I wanted to see just how much money we're talking about here. So I went to Gavi's website and I went to their transparency page where they purport to show all the money in and out to different countries. Here's the page on their website right here. And it says their data will come out in XML format. This is their transparency implementation schedule. And look at all the countries listed here. I didn't check every single one, but every one I did check was an error page. There was no data there. So as they admonish everyone else to stick with the transparent, true information direct from the source, the joke is there is no direct, transparent information. It's just talking points. And what they call misinformation out there is legitimate questions about what they are doing and what they are making and what is in these vaccines. In addition to Gavi, we have CEPI, which unbelievably does the exact same thing as Gavi. I mean, why do we need more than one of these? It was founded at Davos and the World Economic Forum by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Wellcome Trust, and the governments of Germany, Japan, Norway, and India. CEPI will have on its board 4 members from the Investors Council. Gee, I wonder if those are representatives of the pharma companies. I happen to know that 6 of the world's leading pharma companies are involved in the creation of CEPI. And yes, one of them is Pfizer, who is first off the mark with their vaccine. They're also partnering with the World Bank and World Health Organization. Sounds like an exact repeat of Gavi. After the coronavirus hit, Gavi and CEPI and the Global Fund, which is another thing, just like I just described to you, they held a pledge-a-thon hosted by the president of the EU and Ursula von der Leyen. And they raised, from taxpayers, close to 8 billion euros. Right here, it says, each euro or dollar will be channeled through global health organizations such as CEPI, Gavi, the Vaccines Alliance, and the Global Fund and Unitaid. And it wasn't even the only pledge-a-thon. Boris Johnson held another one exactly 1 month later. And they did the same thing. They squeezed more money out of more taxpayers around the world for this facility, for their global vaccine agenda. It's just crazy. So who are they when Dr. Williams and Dr. Yaffe say, I just say whatever they want me to say?
I just say whatever they write down for me.
That's why you're guessing.
I think we're beginning to zero in on who they are. Do you remember Event 201? This was the global pandemic planning exercise that happened just before the outbreak of this so-called pandemic. It happened in October 2019. The sponsors were Bill and Melinda Gates and the World Economic Forum. Well, wait a second. Weren't the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the World Economic Forum who founded CEPI? And didn't the World Economic Forum chief Klaus Schwab write the book COVID-19, The Great Reset? And didn't the United Nations, which would be the World Health Organization, and the World Economic Forum partner in July 2019? There's Klaus Schwab there, and Antonio Guterres. And right here it says that the UN signed a partnership agreement with the World Economic Forum because the Sustainable Development Goals were in trouble. And they needed something to make a faster and more ambitious response. Something was needed to unleash the social and economic transformation to achieve the 2030 goals. Klaus Schwab wrote the same thing in this book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution. And if you look at the goals of the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN, they kind of match up. This is all about a total fundamental change of the whole world economy and the people in it. Remember, the World Economic Forum said that in the Fourth Industrial Revolution, we'll own nothing and we'll be happy. Well, they're well on their way to bankrupting everyone, aren't they, with the COVID-19 lockdown measures? And somebody's going to own that stuff. It's going to be the oligarchs. They're going to come in and scoop it all up so that we can rent everything from them. But how does that explain the part where we'll all be happy about this? It doesn't. Nobody's happy about this. However, if you consider this vaccine that they badly want everyone to take, and nobody knows what's in it, it's completely experimental and changes our DNA, maybe there's something in that vaccine that will help us all to be happy when we own nothing. It's just a suggestion. It's just a suggestion. And if that's the case, they certainly wouldn't want that secret to get out. All they would want is their positive messaging about the vaccine and lockdown and masks, right? Well, Event 201, that the pandemic planning exercise, was all about how to control the messaging. I'm just going to read this quickly. Governments will need to partner with traditional and social media companies to research and develop nimble approaches to countering misinformation. This will require developing the ability to flood the media with fast, accurate, and consistent information. Public health authorities should work with private employers and trusted community leaders such as faith leaders to promulgate factual information to employees and citizens. So they're recruiting everybody. They're recruiting everybody to just keep repeating the same message over and over and over. And they go on here to talk more about how they're going to do this. They call it flood the zone, but they also call it censorship. They use this key phrase, mis and disinformation, but all that really means is dissident voices, contradictory voices. And if you look at this article back here where Seth Berkley from Gavi was calling for all contradictory information to be taken offline, you'll notice that Canada's Chief Public Health Officer, Theresa Tam, said that health authorities need to up their game, adding that she was working with Twitter, Facebook, Google, and other tech companies to what? To do this. And you wonder why all the corporations and all the retail clerks and all the talking heads on the media and even church leaders and the Pope, they're all saying the same thing. Word for word. They are staying on message. The whole pandemic planning exercise, and now the lockdowns and the masking and the social distancing and the push for vaccinations, this is a human trial. They might not have done the human trials like they're supposed to do with the vaccines, not properly, or the animal testing, but they're doing it psychologically to the rest of the world. We are all in a giant human trial to figure out how to control us. Now, I think I have a pretty good smoking gun to show that COVID-19 is just a ruse to make people and governments compliant to the Sustainable Development Goals. They don't seem to link up, do they? But then explain this. This emissions gap report put out this year from the United Nations says this: COVID-19 has provided insight into how rapid lifestyle changes can be brought about by governments who must create conditions that make lifestyle changes possible. Civil society actors, who must encourage positive social norms and a sense of collective agency for lifestyle changes. And infrastructure, which must support behavior changes. The lockdown period in many countries may be long enough to establish new lasting routines if supported by longer-term measures. In planning the recovery from COVID-19, governments have an opportunity to catalyze low-carbon lifestyle changes by disrupting entrenched practices. In other words, COVID-19 is the blueprint for how to control us as they take away everything. This low-carbon lifestyle changes, that means the switch to everything Klaus Schwab talked about in his fourth industrial revolution. We'll own nothing and we'll be happy. That's exactly what that means. And I just must take a moment to show the Orwellian language that they use in this document. It says, governments must create conditions that make lifestyle changes possible. BS! We already had the possibility to make it. What they mean is, governments must make resistance to lifestyle changes impossible. They say that civil society actors are to encourage positive social norms. This translates to, we must use NGOs, unions, and blocks of people to bully and snitch on each other in an organized way. And they talk about something called collective agency. You can't have collective agency. You can only have individual agency. You speak for yourself. You are in control of yourself. Collective agency is communism. It's communism. Good of the whole type thing. And finally, they say that infrastructure must support behavior changes. The World Economic Forum and those types define infrastructure as technology and supply chains. You can go look it up. I didn't bother. So, do you see what's happening all around us? We are being censored by social media. We are being bombarded by the messaging. But not only that, they are threatening our food supply. They are threatening our access to hospitals and retail and all kinds of other services. So would this be what they mean when they say infrastructure must support behavior changes? Yes, in that fascist way, in that way that Dr. David Williams said, we won't make vaccines mandatory. We'll just cut off your access to services you want. But don't forget, Dr. David Williams is just saying whatever they write down for him to say. Just following orders. This is exactly how we got the Holocaust. And everyone hates that comparison, but it's true. The bureaucrats, the functionaries, they just follow orders. And that goes for nurses, that goes for retail clerks, that goes for all of you who think, I didn't write the policy, I'm just implementing the policy. Well, yeah, same within Nazi Germany. Did you ever think growing up that you would be the guy to pull the lever on those gas chambers? Or you would be the guy riding the bulldozer that pushed all the dead bodies into the pits? They were just following orders. Remember how we said that was evil? You are now just following orders yourself. Sean at SGGT Report just did a great video about this, which I will link to in the description box. Now listen, I'm going to wrap up because this got long. All of these warriors for truth, all of these people speaking out against the pharma narrative are being jailed, killed in some cases, their licenses revoked, they're being dragged through the courts, they're being kidnapped, they're being put in psychiatric institutions. Can you believe this is happening? And it might look like it's the government of the United States gone crazy, or of the UK, or of Germany, or France, Ireland, Switzerland. It might seem like it's those governments that have gone crazy, but we are not talking anymore about nation states. They are taking their orders from somebody else. And I believe that other entity who's giving the orders is Big Pharma and the international organizations like the World Economic Forum and the United Nations who want their Great Reset, who want their UN Sustainable Development worldview, who want their Fourth Industrial Revolution, where we own nothing and somehow We're happy about that. These people are heroes, and I hope they will get a lot of support from all of you going forward. In any way we can do it, we have to stick together. Their efforts are not in vain. We are making progress. The snowball is rolling downhill. It's getting bigger, and it's going to cause an avalanche soon. I'm going to close this video by letting John Waters explain it to you.
We stand here in a country which is now almost utterly corrupted at every level. The institutional dimensions of this society, the state, have been essentially occupied by corrupt forces. The government, the parliament, the Oireachtas, the judiciary, even the church, the four estates, if you like. The church last week brought out a blackmail statement threatening people as unfaithful. God help us that they would remain faithful to these scoundrels for much longer. Threatening them that they have a responsibility to take vaccines, untested vaccines. Normally, as we know, a vaccine arrives on the market, and even the ones which have proven to be dangerous arrive in this way, after something like 15 years of trials, 5 years or 6 years on animals, 10 years on human beings. This vaccine is being tested as it is being rolled out. In other words, the public are the lab rats for this, particularly the older people who survived the last cull of March and April of this year, right around the world, uniformly, almost by under instruction centrally, to behave in the same ways. Our society is now bereft of voices of what you might call the institutional dimensions, who speak the truth, who speak warnings, who keep watch, who safeguard our society, who safeguard our freedoms. We have nobody left. There is not one judge who is prepared to stand up in public and speak for our freedoms. There is not one politician. There is not one journalist working for official sources in this country who is prepared to stand up and speak. It is very interesting. This is the first time I have been at a courtroom, and I've been quite a few times at courtrooms in the past 8-9 months. This is the first time I have not had a fake news RTE camera stuck in my face. It's quite a relief, I have to say. But it's also very telling. The tide is turning.
Yes.
Yes.
The tide is turning.
Yes.
These scoundrels will be on the run before long. The people are awakening. The facts are emerging.
Yes.
Already 6 people, as Gemma said, 6 people have died in the Pfizer trials. 6 people out of less than 20,000. Add it up. That's approaching the alleged death rate from COVID-19. Already. And it's only on the market a week. So, everything we said will come true, sadly. Everything we predicted will come true. And we are moving towards a different courthouse. A courthouse where it will not be the people who are fighting for freedom who will be on trial. It will be the criminals who are paid to defend our freedom. Just every day of their life. It is coming. Nuremberg 2 is coming. And we will be there outside those courtrooms too. And we will ensure that justice is done in a way that justice will not be done in these courts as they stand. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Let's just keep going. Let's just keep fighting until we win, because we're going to win in the end. We will. I'm going to stop talking now. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening, for being here. Please subscribe if you haven't. Hit the thumbs up button. I will leave links in the description box to everything that I've referenced, if I can find it again. And please, if you'd like to support my work, you can go to amazingpolly.net. That's my website. On the contact page, I have listed my P.O. box address. So thank you to everybody who's done that. I really, really appreciate it. I appreciate your Christmas cards, your prayers, the artwork you've sent me, everything. It's beautiful. It keeps me going. It nourishes my soul. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything. Just being here, just commenting. Until next time, everybody. I gotta stop talking. Peace out.